Hi, everyone. My name's Miranda. It's a huge pleasure to be here. Huge shout out of thanks to 1% for the Planet, Kate and Gabby and Carla, for convening this panel on the range of the partnerships currently represented in 1% for the Planet, and a huge thanks to all of you for the amazing conversations we've had leading up to today. It's been wonderful. Before we get started, we thought we would ask you guys to take just 90 seconds to turn to a neighbor, preferably one you don't already know, and identify something about this conference that's been surprising and or valuable to date. And we're going to do the same. And then we're going to ask you to hold that in your mind, for the duration of the conversation. Yes, it's been amazing.
I said that to territorial acknowledgement at the beginning, like the one who started with gratitude and mindfulness. That was good to me. And I also have to it was the woman who came up with Caroline. I don't know.
One of the first speakers yesterday, she just had everyone and talked about their ritual for it, and then we had like a minute or two. And it was actually very good.
Yeah, it's the first conference I've ever been to that has ever opened up like that. So.
Today's press, we were so tired and exhausted and excited, and we just kind of raced to like sit and close your eyes for 2 minutes.
Always to sit and close your eyes. Do you guys have one?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop us now. Okay, everybody, please wrap that up. Wrap that up as you can. Hi. Wrap that up as you can and hold it in your mind. Hello, humans. Thank you. Okay, guys, please hold that exchange and that connection, those ideas in your mind for this conversation. I want to ask you guys to tell these guys about the incredible enterprises that you each run first. Jordan, introduce yourself and tell these guys about the work you're doing.
I'm Jordan Nodarse. I founded a company called Boyish Jeans. It's a sustainable and environmentally conscious women's jean brand based out of Los Angeles. And we focus on making recycled cotton jeans, limited water usages, limited chemicals, and all that sort of fun stuff that goes into your jeans. And we manufacture it with using like newer technologies and trying to become zero waste, zero emissions. We work with 1% for the Planet. We host volunteer programs and try to get all those influencers and people out there that do influential work along with us.
Thanks. Neha.
Hi, everybody. My name is Neha Maestra. So you remember me. It means love in Sanskrit. So I am the co-founder and chief collaboration officer of Solar Sister. We are a not-for-profit social enterprise. We tap into one of the largest sources of renewable energy in the world, which, as we know, is woman power, to light up sustainably some of the most remote and off-grid communities across sub-Saharan Africa. How we do that is we recruit, train, and support rural women to become Solar Sister entrepreneurs, to bring life-changing solar lights, phone charging solutions, clean cooking solutions to their own lives and to the lives of their communities. And in doing so, they tap into their own power to power the world, and we shift the narrative of women as poor victims of, climate crisis, energy crisis, to really champions and change makers. So there's Solar Sister Hilaria from rural Tanzania, who is a basket weaver. She's a smallholder farmer. And she's a Solar Sister entrepreneur who uses solar lights in her own house, and who her children see as not just a basket weaver, but also as a clean tech provider in her community. And one of my favorite Solar Sisters, in addition to Hilaria, is Solar Sister Juliet Molel, who is a Maasai elder in Tanzania, who was suffering from massive backaches and eye problems because of using inefficient cook stoves in her house. She became a Solar Sister entrepreneur, her physical burdens reduced. She could, because she was using a clean energy product herself, she could use her social capital to show her neighbor that she too can switch from using an inefficient source of energy to make the transition. And what Juliet has done with her income is help pay for education of her granddaughter Rita, who wants to become a scientist. So these are just two of over 3,800 solar sister entrepreneurs who have delivered clean energy to over 1.6 million people in Tanzania, Nigeria, and Uganda, where we work. And I'm here to make the case that a woman, fighting, not just fighting, healing climate change, are not unicorns. We are not science fiction. We exist, and that we can and we must change this movement by powering many more women. And solar sisters have sisters, and we have brothers too. Thank you.
I was going to say, I do basically the same thing. Okay, follow that one. My name's Matt, which I don't know what it means, but thing you walk over when you go into a room. No, Matt Thomas. I'm the founder of Brew Kombucha, Townsend's tea company. Been at it for about 15 years, right? Founded right here in Portland, Oregon, and we are one of the world's largest producers of the wonderful fermented tea beverage called Kombucha. We operate completely in-house. We do it all ourselves. We joined the ranks of 1% for the Planet about a year and a half ago, and got our B Corp certification shortly thereafter. And I think growing up in the Northwest, those values are kind of just instilled in us, and as kind of the common sense way of doing business. So it's great to have programs like 1% for the Planet to kind of help solidify that effort, and to help really push you to think further. Really proud to be part of the panel. Thank you.
Bethany.
Hello. Hi, I'm Bethany Thomas, and I'm with a nonprofit organization called Ecology in Classrooms and Outdoors, which is a mouthful, and our acronym is ECO, which is much easier. And it's also a good thing because we work with kids, and so we want to be easy for them to speak to and about. So ECO has been around for nearly 15 years. We go into classrooms, into schoolyards. We get kids out into nature in their neighborhoods and in nearby nature field trips, all with the goal of helping to create the next generation of environmental stewards and advocates and leaders. Our programs are designed so that we see the same students many times in a school year, and then again the next year and the next year, ideally kindergarten through 12th grade. So this year we're working with about 6,000 students, multiple places within Oregon, hoping to kind of grow our programs throughout Oregon in the next 5 years. And we also have been a 1% for the Planet member now for about a year and a half, which we'll talk more about later.
Brianne.
Hi, so my name is Brianne, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Nada, which is a package-free grocery store that's based in Vancouver, Canada. We've been operating for about 2.5 years. We started really small with some farmers markets and pop-up shops, and we actually did our very first one in a Patagonia store. And we are on a mission to cultivate a better world by inspiring people to change the way they shop for groceries. So a big part of what we do is really encouraging small individual actions that we very much see every day, just how much those small actions add up and the ripple effect that people can have by making simple changes. Things like swapping a water bottle or a reusable container instead of a disposable cup. I am definitely coming at this, it sounds like quite a few people as well have ecology backgrounds, so I'm a marine mammal biologist by trade. Never in a million years would have thought I would have jumped into the grocery industry, of all things. But I have been really lucky to live and work and travel to a lot of really remote field sites around the world, and it became very apparent just how global and widespread the plastic pollution problem is. I literally have never been on a single dive where I haven't seen plastic, haven't been on a single boat trip or beach where it just hasn't been touched by plastic. And like a lot of organizations, I think that's one thing I've been really excited to hear about at this conference is how many companies and organizations are really trying to tackle these problems at the source. So that's a big part of what we're doing in terms of changing behavior. And we as well have been a 1% for the Planet member since the very beginning, definitely inspired by our roots in the Patagonia store, and also like Brew Doctor became a B Corp shortly after. We opened our first retail store in June of last year, and we've already diverted about 250,000 containers from our 2,300 square foot retail space.
Laurie.
My name is Laurie MacKenzie. I'm the development director with an organization called RAVEN. It's an acronym for Respecting Aboriginal Values and Environmental Needs. We raise legal defense funds to support Indigenous people in Canada through the colonial court system in defense of their territorial land against industrialization. We're the only nonprofit in Canada that does this work. We're also 501c3 recognized through America, I guess that's the United States. That's where we are.
Welcome.
We're young, we're 10 years old. We see the impact of our work growing every day. We believe that the Indigenous people in Canada shouldn't shoulder the huge financial burden to go through the courts to get these decisions that will ultimately benefit us all. So in 2014 and in 2018, we partnered with over 11 nations in 2 different, what we call pull together campaigns. And through that, we raised over $1 million. And we got a quashing of the Enbridge pipeline and a quashing of the Kinder Morgan pipeline. So the impact of our work and of the partnerships we're having with not only Indigenous communities but with amazing businesses is awesome, and it's growing every day. So.
And I'll say a quick word about the Climate Museum, which I founded and currently direct. We've been offering public programming intensively throughout New York City for the last little more than a year, 14 months. And our goal is to create a freestanding museum dedicated to climate change. It'll be the first such institution in the US and only the second in the world, though it's actually starting to percolate up in other places, I'm delighted to report. The basic idea is, as everyone in this room is very well aware, our species and our civilization face an unprecedented existential threat. To confront that threat successfully, one of the things, not the only thing, but one of the things we need is a massive cultural shift in how we relate to and understand the threat of climate change. And museums, because they're hugely popular and deeply trusted, have the potential to play a profoundly transformational role in supporting and sparking that cultural shift. So that's where our work is centered. Right now in the US, as of December 2018, 73% of people in the US were anxious about climate change, with, guess what percentage about us speaking about climate change? 8%. So that's a 65% delta. That's a big sweet spot for a brand new organization to have, but in some sense, that's our sweet spot. If even a slender fraction of those 65% of the population of the US start thinking, feeling actively, talking on climate, then we have a totally different situation. And so I'll say more, I've just been a 1% nonprofit partner for a few months. It's been incredible already. I'll have more to say about that later. But turning to the partnerships that 1% nurtures, I want to start with you, Matt and Bethany, to talk about how your guys' partnership came to be.
We have a funny, in this context, partnership. We're married. We met in 1999 and got married in 2002. And as we got into our careers, we both kind of had this entrepreneurial track. Matt started the Townsend House company, and I got started in this nonprofit Ecology in Classrooms and Outdoors adventure. And as we grew these 2 organizations, it became really clear, we're, like Matt said, growing up here, we both grew up here. There's this kind of Northwest values. We had a lot of shared values as a married couple, and it made sense to translate the shared values we have as a family into our entrepreneurial adventures as well. So I was familiar with 1% for the Planet, having kind of spent so many years in the nonprofit world. And when the time came, it was definitely something was like, you guys need to be doing this. You should be a 1% for the Planet member too. And so I brought it to them, and they were in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, we were already, as you grow a company, you have all sorts of hopes and dreams for it, right? And you do only so much as you're capable of doing along the way. But as we encountered success over the years, we wanted to, just do some form of charitable giving. And Bethany and I, have well, although we talk about Portland and Oregon being so progressive, you were the first vegetarian I'd ever met. So. Turned me on to salad. It's delicious. But yeah, 1% for the planet, it came along, and Bethany brought it to my attention and said, we're already helping support Eco by giving them office space, trying to do as much volunteer hours as we're doing. And Eco is just really great at the goal of creating the next generation of environmental stewards, right? Education is the key to everything, right? And so education for the next generation of kids who aren't getting out there, whose schools aren't putting them out in nature, that's where ECO goes in and teaches these outdoor science enrichment programs to inspire these kids just with the natural world around them. And I can think of few more noble causes than educating kids around to not focus on everything that's so digital in the world, and the true love of what's real, and the fact that there's this growing group of people that want to save and protect it. I don't know if you want to speak more about ECO's programs.
No, I feel like you did a nice job there. Thank you.
Yeah, poster boy.
Thanks, guys. So you don't have to be married. Neha and Jordan, how about you? How about your story? How did your partnership come to be?
Well, when I started, we've been 1% for the Planet members ever since we started selling jeans. Being a woman's jean brand, I wanted to sponsor more woman-focused groups. I loved the idea of the, Solar Sister empowering women to power other women, which is kind of the same story that I had going. Obviously, jeans isn't maybe the particular thing you might think of a way to connect to the environment, but every woman, cares about how she looks and what she's wearing, and most importantly, how her butt looks. So I figured, if we can maybe, empower them to not just care about, feeling good and how their butt looks, but feel good because of also their product was produced by something. And, we use environmental methods with our jeans, which is great, yes, but, how do we close that loop and really care more about not just, what we're doing, but the population, the people, and, I thought Neha, and especially when I spoke to her too and saw everything she was doing, I said, this is the best probably movement that we can support here is women out there trying to bring other women the capability of creating businesses, healthier lives. Everything that we were doing, it just felt like the greatest connection for us.
Yeah, and I'd say, so we came together through 1%, and I think it's also wonderful to see the diversity of partnerships here, because we just met like in person today, yeah, so so our relationship is young, although our core values have this beautiful, powerful intersection. So we need oak trees and we need seedlings, we need all of the above. And I feel what's so powerful about coming together is, I live in Washington, D.C., so we are trying to build bridges in a time of walls, and we need more bridge builders. And what a beautiful bridge. I actually feel, as Jordan is talking, the connection between women feeling beautiful, wearing a jeans which has been sustainably designed and produced, and Solar Sister, there's a really, really strong connection philosophically also. So Solar Sister model was designed after Avon, the cosmetic company, which some of you may know. So Avon ladies, they sell beauty products, lipsticks, eyeshadows, woman to woman, right? And we are selling solar energy, light, phone charging, woman to woman, and I feel the connection between the two, and also with Boyish jeans is beauty. That you can feel beautiful by putting on a lipstick, you can feel beautiful by putting on a really sexy jeans, and you can feel beautiful when you can see your face once the sun sets down, and when you can see your family's face, when your child can study, and when you don't have to worry if you're stepping out at night to use an outdoor toilet that you won't have light, you will be attacked, or that your child would not be able to study at night because of lack of light that we in this country take so much for granted, because we are in abundance, oversupply of light. As a friend recently said that we have so much light we cannot see the stars. So, but people in other parts of the world, they don't have light, and we need to democratize light and beauty through light, and that's what brings us together.
So you guys collaborated at least across the continent,
Yes.
DC and LA, but arguably around the world, Tanzania and LA. You guys are both in Vancouver. Tell us about your partnership and how it came to be and what its history has been.
Yeah, so our partnership has definitely stemmed from our love of the environment. We're also in the Pacific Northwest. I think Vancouver, especially, people that grow up and live there are just surrounded by nature and really appreciate the beauty and want to protect our coast. And that's definitely something that's instilled in our team and our customer base as well. We also were a 1% for the Planet company from the very beginning. We're definitely inspired by the Patagonia team. We're really, really lucky to spend so much time in their store and really learn from their staff and their team about how they are able to support a lot of grassroots environmental organizations, and that's definitely something that we took with us from the very beginning. As a team, we decided that the initiatives that we wanted to support would be focused on marine conservation, food education, food security, and waste management. That was definitely something that I learned through marine biology, actually. It's not necessarily something that people think about in terms of how interconnected our oceans are to our food system. So actually, I had a job working as a marine mammal observer for 2 summers during my master's degree, and essentially had 12 hours a day to myself sitting on a dock looking for 1 or 2 whales that might pop up, and really started to realize there when I was staring out to sea just how much of an impact our food system has on the ocean. So everything from agricultural runoff that creates dead zones where nothing can live to marine debris and plastic pollution, overfishing and bycatch, lots of really, really big issues, and that's kind of where we wanted to tie in the conversation around food. In terms of becoming a 1% for the Planet member, it's something that's really centered around our team. So our staff nominates, and every quarter we decide as a team which 1% for the Planet partners we want to support. So it was my co-founder Allison who suggested Raven. Raven, as Laurie mentioned, is a legal defense fund, and NADA is located in Vancouver on the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations land. And so any opportunity that we can take as a business to support First Nations, who are our original defenders of the coast, was something that we were really excited to do.
So I just got a random phone call from NADA one day, and that's the best when you're a fundraiser. And I actually live on Vancouver Island, so I was going to Vancouver, I think the next week. I'm like, why don't I just come meet you? And right away we connected, traveling in different parts of Canada. You see how people who live on the coast appreciate the coast. It's hard for people who live in Toronto to feel the air, the salt, and to see the devastation that could happen with a spill or any catastrophe like that. So we bonded like that immediately, and Ravens, we have campaigns, and then we have core funding, and so people have the choice to support campaigns, which NADA chose to support the Health Sick Nation, who is was one of our campaign communities when we raised money to stop Enbridge. They live in remote northern British Columbia. They're a small community that's isolated, and we were able to bring a community member down to the event we had at NADA. We filmed this really awesome movie that this woman that on our staff made, and it kind of shows a really quick view of the beauty of their culture, the threat of Enbridge, the win, and then the Nathan E. Stewart tug ran aground on their abalone beds that were about to be harvested after 30 years and decimated their clam beds. So as an organization, we mourned with that community. And for NADA to step up and give us their network and say, here, share the experience, and to have a member of their community down to be like, this is what it was like, that's impact that you can't buy. Those are relationships that are at the fundamental core of everything we all do. You know, relationships with our customers, with our clients, with our business partners, with our Indigenous partners. So we're just so grateful. We're so grateful to live where we are and to be inspired by the people we are inspired by.
I want to thank you for sharing your emotion in that way. It's beautiful. And that's a perfect segue to the next thing that we wanted to talk about, which is the value that these partnerships have. One of the really transformative things about 1% for the Planet, from my perspective as a person and an organization new to it, is that it is making a space beyond transactional philanthropy for a deeper kind of relationship. And I know you spoke earlier about the isolation that Indigenous communities can feel and how 1% has impacted that. Starting with the nonprofit partners, and first with you, Laurie, let's talk about the value of these partnerships.
So in 2014, when we started to work with the health sick community, and it's never easy to say this, but there's always like some kind of underlying fear or mistrust of the settler community in Indigenous communities. White people always want to go in and fix things, and what we need to learn is we're here to learn from them. So it took a lot to form these relationships, but we held this huge event in East Vancouver, and we had dancers, and the chief and the hereditary chief and a council member came down, and that was the first time they had ever been exposed to the people that were donating to their community. And they sat in this theater, and they were profoundly touched, and they had said afterwards that it gave them resolve to go deeper. It gave them resolve to not stop. You know, like when they're up in their community and they feel like they're in a bubble, then they're the only ones standing up. They were able to physically feel people's energy. And then we've also been told by the lawyers that, knowing that they had a partnership with Raven, that the money was coming in, that they were able to go deeper as a legal team, because like Raven was formed because legal bills weren't getting paid. And so a really smart group of lawyers said, well, let's just form an organization that could raise money and help these people. So Eugene Klung works for West Coast Environmental Law, awesome organization. And they were able to dig in deep on the marine safety aspect of the Kinder Morgan shit show, excuse my language. And that's what the judge quashed that certificate on, was the Kinder Morgan, was the marine safety. So without that knowledge of the money was coming from the public through Raven, they wouldn't have been able to dig deep, just like the nations couldn't dig deep in their in the resolve to keep going. So it's been powerful in the partnership area.
So knowing what you can count on in a certain way. Neha, you've said things similar to that. Can you talk about the value of the partnership that you have with Jordan?
So there's an African saying, it goes like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think the time of both crises and the double-edged sword of crises and opportunity that we are in is that we have to go fast and we have to go far. So I think the value that this wonderful community provides, and this is my first time at the Global Summit, thanks to Gabby and everybody else who has done so much work to put this together and to give us this opportunity for us to come together and to share with you, is that, how do we think outside the box? How do we think really creatively and go faster and farther together? So who would think that, Boyish in LA and Solar Sister in rural Tanzania, rural Nigeria would be collaborating? But here we are, right? And I know we have miles and miles to go together. We are just beginning this really exciting partnership, and I think the value is both the practicality of how we can support each other in our bold ambitions, and also inspiration, how we can be role models for others, that we can climb higher and higher mountains. And I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2015. It was brutally beautiful, most difficult thing in my life. And how you climb a mountain is one step at a time, but you should you should keep your eye on the peak, but if you only keep your eye on the peak, you're going to stumble. So you have to focus on your steps, but you have to not forget what you are going for. So I think that's the value of the partnership, that both inspiration and perspiration. And coming from Solar Sister, and my parallel life is as a poet, and I think light is powerful. Light is poetry. The world needs more poetry. Let's make it happen. You know?
Great, thank you. Brittany?
So I would add to the importance of community as a huge value that 1% for the Planet provides. And not only in this relationship with Brew Doctor, but with our other 1% for the Planet businesses, and then with fellow nonprofits in the world. So it's this badge, this 1% for the Planet badge, that provides a level of credibility to partners that you've not necessarily met or had much experience with in the past. And it's been opportunities for us to team up with nonprofit partners on the coast to say, we don't know who you are in Portland. We're a little far away. We're maybe big city to some of the people's perspectives on the coast. But they know that we're a 1% for the Planet organization, and so they see that we have these same shared values that they have. And now we have a program running on the coast with students who are out there, and we're able to take students in the Portland area who may have never visited the coast in their life, because a lot of our students are in low-income communities and don't get an opportunity to travel and see things. So we get to take them out to the coast and experience the coast, and crazily enough, not only the coast, but to the gorge, which is just right here by us in Portland and is beautiful. And I think there might be a field trip happening in the gorge. But it's really beautiful. And to know that there are kids in our community who aren't getting there, but because of these community partnerships that are kind of smoothed. The way is made easy because we are also 1% for the Planet partners. It's been a big deal.
Thanks. Brianne, from the member perspective, the value of your 1% partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, for us, a lot of it comes down to community as well. And something that we like to do at NADA is we let our team choose a different partner every quarter, and a big part of what we try to do is go well beyond the fundraising, and we usually try to do an event with each organization that we team up with. So there's a really big opportunity to help promote each other's causes and potentially expose different people to a mindset or an idea that they might not be familiar with otherwise. And I guess on the business side for us as well, the opportunity to work with other 1% for the Planet companies in our supply chain has been a really big component of what we do. So we do a lot of waste reduction on the consumer side. So we actually have a technology in our store that enables people to digitally track the weight of their containers so that they're not paying for them. And that enables us to divert a huge amount of consumer waste. But a big part of the work that we actually do is on our supply chain side of things. So when possible, we have a reusable container swapping system with our suppliers, for example. And a big part of what we do is trying to support a more just food system. So we have relationships with all of our suppliers, many of them who are local, lots of them who are B Corps, 1% for the Planet companies, female-led companies, indigenous-led organizations. And being part of the network and to work with those suppliers who are 1% for the Planet certified, just facilitates those conversations. It's often a lot easier. You're coming into a network of values-aligned people, and you're able to make change happen a lot quicker.
Great. Jordan, the value of 1% partnerships for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's most interesting is just inspiration. Coming to an event like this, it's fun. Hearing stories about groceries, I wouldn't be thinking here oh, how can I connect that to jeans? You definitely don't buy jeans at grocery stores, but just the way that people think is just really interesting. For those that were listening to Yvonne Chenard talk last night, how you have to disrupt the system and think differently. And with me and 1%, it was important for me to be able to connect. We started with Solar Sister. We implemented a program now on our website where we connected with one tree. So every time you purchase jeans from our website, we'll plant one tree. And we even want to go farther. I mean, I would love to be able to have a camera set up every 3 months or 6 months. You can see your tree and see where it's growing and give it a name or whatever. But I'm obviously not there yet. But that's the whole point. Is just creating an experience is really important. If you can bring somebody down and give them an experience, if you can take children to an ocean you can't do, and that's I feel what people are missing is a company isn't just selling products. You're not giving a service. you're given a connection, an experience that people want to be a part of. And 1%'s giving you the tools to be able to do that, because we do live in a world where people need tools. Everyone's too used to things happening, given to them in their hands, and making, you should be able to just get your food in 2 minutes. It's like, it doesn't take 2 minutes to make food. And everybody needs to understand that, teamwork is dreamwork, and working together is what can help you achieve way more than trying to handle things on your own.
Thanks. Matt?
Yeah, I think that once we were signed on with 1% for the Planet, and we had this kind of outward-facing expression of this value that we had always kind of believed in. We let it kind of infuse into everything else we did. So when we set about coming up with a new kind of marketing campaign or expression to the consumer, we obviously want to talk about kombucha and the reasons kombucha is great and kombucha is good for you, right? And we wanted to also, though, be able to encapsulate how how we were trying to be good stewards of running a business and supporting the community and doing things in a sustainable way. And we came up with good for humans, right? Because kombucha is good for humans, and we're trying to be good for humans, and that can mean it's good for nonprofits, right? It's good for kids. It's good for collaboration, and so we've been able to kind of take that kind of as a company mantra and challenge ourselves to bend it into different opportunities. So whether when there was the government shutdown, we did good for national parks, right? And we donated money to Crater Lake. And we've done good for oceans and helping with the Five Gyres work, and good for sustainability when we figured out which we went about selecting the carbon offsets we were going to do to get carbon neutral in our manufacturing processes. So I think there's certainly some inspiration you can take from it when you look at how you want to portray your company to the world. And then again, the badge, just kind of like how USD organic has been important, for the last 20 years. You're seeing, this is one of those next badges that you look for. If you see the 1% for the Planet logo on a product, at least me and I'm sure everybody in this room, that, hey, this is a company that at least is trying, right? They at least care enough to make this commitment. Because there's so many companies you come across that are just profit driven, and anyway, I'm rambling about but the value of the logo is a real thing, and so I think that's something that I always tell when I talk to other entrepreneurs who are considering doing some kind of way of solidifying what they want to do with their charitable giving. I said there's value there.
Thanks. And I think it's kind of emblematic of the strengths of 1% for the Planet, that keeping distinct the topics of what are the values of the partnerships you have and what are the values of belonging as a member to the community is impossible in the end. So pivoting to community membership as a member, Brianne, I know you have some thoughts about that too. What are the benefits to you? What's the value of being part of the broader 1% community?
Yeah, I mean, for us, being part of the broader 1% for the community is a huge opportunity, first and foremost, to network with like-minded businesses. The way that our supply chain operates is just completely different than any other grocery store. So when we can start those conversations, with a mutual understanding of where we're coming from in terms of our values, that's a really great place to start. For us, it's also a really big opportunity to draw in both our customers and our team into our mission and into the projects that we're really passionate about. So a lot of those do revolve around environmental justice and food security issues. And it actually means physically bringing people into our space. People do see that 1% for the logo sign on the window. They see it online. It's often a really good starting point for conversation for people who might not know what it means. And for us, it's just a really awesome and engaging way for us to interact with nonprofits that we really care about and whose missions we want to support ourselves.
Thanks. And Bethany, you've spoken a little about scale and credibility in relation to the value of being part of the 1% community and having the badge. Are there other things that you would flag for our friends here about what ECO gets from being part of that community?
Absolutely, and I kind of want to expand to beyond ECO, if you wouldn't mind. As I mentioned earlier, it's this badge of credibility, being able to reach out into new communities and have conversations that otherwise you might not be able to. And Morgan on the panel earlier mentioned this new initiative that we have going called Earth Day Oregon, here in Oregon. And it's an opportunity to increase the impact of Earth Day as Earth-focused nonprofits are teaming up with sustainably minded businesses, like you all here, and asking that they make a contribution to that nonprofit on Earth Day in honor of the good work that they're doing. So this year is the 49th anniversary of Earth Day. 2020 will be the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And what we're hoping to do is to make Earth Day Oregon like Earth Day Tennessee or Earth Day Washington. Or it's a concept that would be really scalable. So we're running a dry run. If you're interested in what it might be like to have an Earth Day, your place, talk with me or Morgan Ryder. She's around too. And then we have 6 1% for the Planet organizations like Wanderwell sitting over here, and Brew Doctor, EMA Architecture. A bunch of them are signed on to be Earth Day Oregon supporters as well, which is really cool. It's a very much shared ethos. And I was able to make these contacts with the nonprofit organizations with the 1% for the Planet because of that badge and that credibility. So it's very cool.
Outstanding. Now, where do we want to go? I want to hear first from two of our nonprofits, Neha and Laurie, about where you'd like to see your relationships go after this summit. What would you like to see come out of the summit?
I'd say really building on like some of the wonderful experiences that people have had from both nonprofit and business partner side. My hope would be that we can build deeper and even more diverse and even more creative partnerships. My hope is also, as a not-for-profit partner, I think, so we are in a 2.0 stage of our relationship with one person. We've been members for a long time, and I think it's in a revival stage in many parts because of amazing work that Gabby is doing, highlighting our work and really supporting us, listening to us, advising us, and it has been absolutely invaluable. My sincere wish is, I think right now, if I may candidly say, I think right now it seems to me there is a bit of a power imbalance where the businesses are on the top and not-for-profits are slightly not on the same level, which gives more power to whoever is on the top. And how can both be brought on the same platform? Because not-for-profits, for example, cannot approach businesses, right? It's a matter of policy. But my hope is there can be some Bumble app for 1% where if you have a minimum match of your aspirations to do good, bing, it's okay to reach out, So my hope is that because there's so many amazing people, I'm like, oh my God, I want to go and talk to somebody who cares for women, Africa, climate change, but I can't do that. So right now it's like being in a corner of a speed dating round and waiting, I hope they pick me, I hope they pick me. So I hope that can change, and that by designing the system, and I know a new website is going to come out, and I realize it's very much the thinking is in process. And also my hope is, we're a small but mighty not-for-profit, and we want to learn, what partnerships have worked for businesses, what partnerships have worked for not-for-profits. We have a massive learning curve, how to build meaningful partnerships with corporates. Can somebody teach us, please? I'm sure there are so many amazing people here who can teach us, but we don't know, and I'm admitting to my need for education and our need for education. So can we have some kind of a skill share within the 1% community? And I hope just two of ideas from my idea factory. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm gonna be over here recovering from the trauma of remembering internet dating. So, while I do that, Laurie.
Well, I think 1% for the planet is such a huge untapped potential, has such huge impact for Raven. You know, we've been a member for 7 years, and it's kind of been that way. Like, we're just over in a corner hoping to be picked. But, you know, funding Indigenous litigation is a long-term game. You know, like, we need to develop deep relationships with people who are committed to our mandate as they are. So, yeah, we are... to be here is like so awesome. I'm coming every year, like if I'm invited or not. I hope I spoke too soon maybe. But yeah, like just to be here, to have Raven be heard of what we do, the impact we can make, as long as a game it is, the impact is so deep, what these court cases can do, but the need to fund is bigger, you know? It's not a cheap game, so.
I'm actually going to circle back to the questions that you guys have raised because we're right on time, which is fantastic. But first, Jordan, I know you had some specific things that you were hoping for going forward with 1% and framing issues in the fashion industry. So I want to make sure you have a chance to air those out because I think they speak to the values-based community aspect.
Did I already answer this? Or is this
You
like
did
a...
not.
All right,
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Just check. I was thinking, she said cat herding earlier, and I was still thinking cat herding, and I was like, maybe she said something to me. Yeah, I mean, fashion is interesting because fashion's become the second largest polluting industry. Some people don't realize that. It kind of teeter-totters against agriculture, which makes sense because that's food and you have to survive off of it. But fashion, you don't need fashion to survive. So it's kind of ridiculous it's become the second largest polluting industry. For me, it's not just about manufacturing products that maybe don't have microfiber shedding or manufacturing products that are using transparent cotton that doesn't support, you know, child labor or slave labor, because believe it or not, that still exists. It's more so a circular system, you know. It's no different than Matt's talking about carbon neutrality. You know, we need to think beyond. We need to think beyond just manufacturing products, and you know, with me being in fashion, it's beyond just being pretentious and looking good, but feeling good. We wanted girls to feel like it's cool to care, which is one of our hashtags. Every month we do social give back programs, whether it's with a 1% for a partner, or if it's, for instance, March was Women's History Month, International Women's Day. So we definitely put a lot of focus around that. We did a volunteer program with the Downtown Women's Center in Los Angeles and helped sort donations and went down there with a couple influencers and actually got them to do something influential. We had a big spotlight on Solar Sister, talked, you know, told all of our girls on our Instagram a little bit more about that. Impact goes farther than just being a fundraiser. You know, like I'm a small company. We're not even a profitable company. Still haven't even had the chance to pay myself. But, you know, it's passion that really gets it through. And, you know, even though I can't really, you know, donate as much, I try to do as much as we can to get the word out there and get more people excited about caring. And that's the most important thing, is not about money you can give, but the impact you can do.
Thank you. So Matt and Brianne, I want to ask you guys to think out loud with us about what you do to address the dynamics of funder and grantee imbalance that Neha raised. Because the 1% is doing an incredible job of creating a model of philanthropy that puts us on an equal footing and that moves past the transactional. We're all very socialized to that dynamic within the nonprofit fundraising world. It's a very classic dynamic that everyone in this room is trying to overcome. What have your guys' thoughts been about the work you do in this area as grant makers within 1%?
You know, you're always aspirational as one of the businesses that's involved, right? That's the whole thing about getting involved. You're doing it because you've got this hope of making a difference and helping the people who are really doing the hard work, the nonprofits, to make that difference. You're hoping to be able to elevate them to the next level, and everybody wants to be the next Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? But so I think, you know, when you start working with nonprofits and seeing all the work that's being done, there's a momentum that you get to that infuses into your entire company and is a source for positive motivation for everyone trying to get creative to help drive forward how we can help, and which, the imbalance, that's a constant fundraising challenge, right? Where there's no great answer other than to know that the companies are doing it because we want to do more.
Can I jump on to something that he's saying?
Please.
Sorry. I would also add that one of the things that Brew Doctor does that's been really wonderful is that they're able to do more than donate money. As Matt mentioned earlier, they donate space. They donate use of their printer, which is a nice printer. So if you all have a printer, that's a big deal. And then the workforce there, we've had a lot of volunteers come from there, whether it's them coming on our field trips to help out occasionally or doing the really not glamorous stuff like stuffing envelopes for us. That takes time, and if we can find volunteers who do that, it also then it helps to helps a little with that imbalance, because then it's people to people and it's not so much big company and little poor nonprofit.
And it's not just an exchange. Everybody's in it together.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just jumping on that as well too, it doesn't necessarily even need to be a big company. Like, Allison and I started doing this when it was just 2 of us and a handful of friends and 10 jars in a Patagonia store, and we were donating $40 checks, and it was amazing. And yeah, it's really cool as a business to be able to grow and see those, $100 checks turn into a couple $1,000 checks, and where will that go? But I do think there's a lot of opportunity. Like thinking on the supply chain side of things as well. Like as businesses, we all have very different and very complex supply chains, and there's an opportunity to engage everyone that you're working with. So like on the business side of things with a lot of our suppliers, there are many that we have encouraged to become 1% for the Planet Partners. So I think thinking about, how can you leverage your own network to grow the movement is a good place to start. And then on the nonprofit side of things as well, we've kind of decided as a company the 4 focus areas that we want to support, because those are the things that we're really passionate about. But we, as a business, have actually reached out to nonprofit members that are not part of the network, and I've encouraged them to apply. And a lot of times they just might not be aware of it as a funding source. And I think becoming part of the network as a nonprofit is the opportunity to tap into a really important long-term funding source. And at NADA as well, that is something that we really try to do as well. We are still small. We're 1 store, but we do a lot in terms of in-kind donations as well. So we've teamed up with our nonprofit partners. We do a lot of in-store events, and we donate space. We've actually designed our space. Our entire grocery store is built with reclaimed materials, and when we were designing the space, we made every single fixture movable, so we can actually push everything to the back. We can host about 125 people in our space. We do yoga classes and repair workshops, and almost every organization that we bring into the space is a nonprofit, 1% or not. But there is a really big opportunity as a business to bring your team into those events, to do things like trail cleanups and beach cleanups, and to choose events to engage both your customers and your team. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to go to the Q&A in just a couple minutes. I'll say quickly, from the Climate Museum's perspective, we've only been a member, a nonprofit partner for several months. But already from Nathan Irons, I've gotten incredible reading recommendations. I recommend that everybody immediately download American Wolf and read it. Advice on making the transition to carbon-free banking, which is a very big deal for us. We're still in the beginning stages organizationally, but we feel like it's incredibly important for our banking and for other aspects of our consumption as an organization and consumer activity to express the underlying values and mission of the Climate Museum. So we've gotten expert financial advice on that. We also went to the New York City Steering Committee meeting, and out of a relationship that we built there, we're getting this beautiful reclaimed wood, super high-end fixtures and furniture for an upcoming exhibition we're doing that's inspired by and designed to elevate youth voices, the wave of youth leadership that we're seeing on the climate crisis. So we're getting reduced price, beautiful wood furniture. And I got this beautiful bag from Andy Bags, which has a bigger bag that matches it as well for free. And it's made out of recycled and 100% post-consumer plastic bottles. So for us, already it has had a super 360-degree, not at all transactional feeling. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful to the organization. And I also want to echo what Elisa from the Story of Stuff said this morning. As a nonprofit representative, speaking to all of you as members, the majority of the economy is powered by the for-profit sector, not the not-for-profit sector. So what you're doing is transformational in a deep and powerful way. And I really, and I know I speak for the other nonprofit partners up here, we really thank you for that profoundly. It's going to change the world. So before we get your questions, a popcorn-style question for you. So just shout out your answers, thinking about the whole conference thus far. We face unbelievable challenges as a species. What makes you confident that 1% for the planet can help us meet those challenges? Phrases and words. Hope spots. Collective impact.
Community.
Community. Collaboration. I'm going to add scale. Awareness. Storytelling.
Yeah, marketing power.
Marketing power, definitely. Accountability. Momentum.
Transparency.
Transparency. Okay, that's an awesome list. Thank you, guys. Your questions. We're going to be waiting for the mic to be passed to you, so there will be pauses in which we can all reflect on the trauma of internet dating or any other subject that comes to mind.
Was there?
Not necessarily that on topic, but is Portland on the list for NADA to have an expansion?
Second person to ask this in the last hour. At some point, we definitely hope to expand into the Pacific Northwest. Our business model right now relies really heavily on our local food system, and that's something that's really important to us. So we're looking at expanding regionally to start with, but still for the
Catches on the camera.
Hi, thanks. I was just wondering, for Jordan and Neha, since you two are sort of on opposite sides of the country, and I know you two just met each other, what do you plan to do, or do you have plans possibly in the future of bringing you two closer together, actually even physically, and doing things, events or other things like that together? What do you see in the future, I guess?
You want to talk about you're doing an event in DC that we're looking to help sponsor, right?
Yeah, I see amazing things in future. We are going to do so much, and so many one-person members would be inspired by us, and they would be calling us so much. How did you make this happen? So we are talking about events on both the coasts. I have invited Jordan and a family, both literal and family of choice and family of work, to come to Tanzania and meet our solar sisters, maybe climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and maybe also inspire the team and partners, and maybe raise money for solar sister. Whatever works, we can custom design it. But because I think that empathy is so important. How do you teach somebody who has never ever for a day in their life lived without light, except when they are glamping, to tell what it is to live with darkness, which is not of your own making, right? So we have big plans, and yes, we'll work together to make things happen, make wonderful things happen, and to spread the light.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to find out. You got to it takes time. You know, like that was my one. I didn't even understand what 1% was when I first started. I was just like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. And you know, even I think even with Boyish, like I was like, how am I going to do my marketing? I came from working with Revolve, and they cared more about paying influencers and not getting one yacht but 2 yachts and paying Kardashians to come to events. And I was like, geez, this is not the way that you should be spending money. And to working for Reformation, where I saw there's the most sustainable company in the world because I worked at the company, but the forward-facing people outside of it didn't really understand it. So I was like, well, how do we put both of these worlds together? And that's why, you know, we're talking about ideas of maybe I can figure out a way to get some of the influencers and maybe editors from Vogue and stuff like that, this world that they're not used to seeing directly how to volunteer, and how do we connect them and bring them out there? I mean, obviously I don't have the money to be flying people out there now, but these, you know, like forward-facing things in the future, connect together, come up with great ideas that help disrupt the system and show people that, you know, it's cool to care, it's cool to help people, and that everybody can do it.
And I would just add, you know, also, I think the empathy, not just for our work across the oceans, but also empathy for each other. You know, as we've been talking, you know, having run a startup social enterprise, and Jordan is running a startup, I totally feel how we are doing so much, you know. So how we can get really creative and, you know, put, you know, our focus on selected areas where we can have huge ripples, so to make waves together.
Nathan. Sorry.
For the nonprofits, of how for-profit businesses can, you know, we're always looking to speed up the impact, how we could combine the 1% network with the for-profit companies' customers. Because I've had people say, well, we love you're doing the 1%, but what about the really fun ones if we want to do more? So I would love to see how the platform could be used to get all of our customers excited about particular nonprofits, and I think in many ways that would drive more votes, dollars, all sorts of things than only counting on the 1% giving.
How do we make that happen?
That's a fantastic idea, and I'll just repeat what Laurie said, is that how we as nonprofits support that effort, which will end up redounding to our benefit, is a question we might reflect back to some of the people in the room. But I think that that's exactly the kinds of things that I've been hearing from you guys over the course of our different conversations together, is that so much of what this is about is communicating values broadly and at scale, and pushing that out consistently, so that it's not a one-to-one, and much less a one-to-one transactional relationship, but something much broader about spreading these values for social progress and environmental progress that we all share across the society. And 1% seems poised to do that in an increasingly powerful way, building on existing strengths. So I think it's a great suggestion. And Laurie?
Yeah, we try to diversify our revenue streams all the time. So when we build out our campaigns, one of those elements is to connect with our partners to expand the reach through them, and then offer ways through peer-to-peer fundraising or like team fundraising to really give the people the power to join in on these campaigns and make an impact themselves, not just coming through their purchases through the business. So yeah, we have structures for that. But
I would. It depends on who you're teaming up with, and you know what the company's capabilities are. But with Brew Doctor, one thing that's been really great for us, and for a lot of nonprofits, is marketing. We don't have marketing departments. That's like the overhead admin category, which is really shameful. When you're in a nonprofit world, they don't. You're supposed to have a very small admin budget, right? So. Even though it's important, we don't have oftentimes expertise or the dollars to do it. So on Brew Doctor, we're here on the bottom, and we've been on the label for a lot of years. It says we support ecology in classrooms and outdoors, and it has our website on it. And it's not huge, but it's there. And I know that people have seen it because they've talked to me about it. So that's a impactful thing you can do, and it's great for you too, right? Because you get to share your story and talk about how you're putting your money where your values are.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We have it on our website. We do stories on Instagram. I mean, co-partnering and marketing is the best. I mean, that's what marketing means, is it's forward-facing to the consumer. So, you know, if you can tell a story and you can be as transparent as possible, if you can actually physically go there. I mean, it's a little bit easier for you guys because you live together, but I mean, for me and her, I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's why I'm like, my whole thing with transparency was, I know there's companies out there that say like radical transparency, and then all of a sudden you see people writing articles about how H&M is more transparent, then you're like, oh my God, like as a consumer, you're probably thinking, I can't even trust these people. But the one thing that you can definitely do is you can go there. If you have to go, for me, it's like if I have to go to the cotton fields, if I have to go to the factories, I go beyond just a factory because, I mean, there's 60% more beyond that. And I show my customers what that looks like. And it helps people feel it. It goes back to that whole experience. And you know, that's what we want to get to with all of our 1% for the partners, 1% for the planet partners is that transparency.
One more question.
I have like a supply chain question, I guess, for the for-profit businesses. How have you gone about kind of building out a supply chain with the 1% network that's more sustainable? And if possible, like, how did you use this platform to kind of choose where you're going with the supply chain? Because I know that's one of the biggest issues for some of the businesses like us that are just starting out. We have so much freedom in where we can kind of go. So how did you kind of make decisions like that in the early going?
I don't know if this is exactly on point, but Matt, I think I remember you're talking about evangelizing 1% up and down the supply chain.
Yeah, you know, I think the thing we've been focused on is you know, carbon footprint, so trying to stay as local as possible throughout the supply chain. And then we're 100% organic, so organic certification and locality has been kind of what our mantra's been all along. But then, you know, you have to audit your supply chain in order to make sure they're doing what they say they are, and in those conversations that you have throughout that process. Yeah, you can evangelize, try to, you know, just like we want to get, like we're all in this because we want to do more, right? And part of that is plumbing your network to try to get other people, because a lot of these businesses are, you know, giving back in some way or another, and they might qualify already, or they're almost there, right? So this is something where, again, like I said, the value is having something to call it, some way to cement it in the policy of your organization. Maybe they're looking for that same thing. So just being vocal about it, and that's why we kind of put it on everything, right? We put it on our business cards, we put it on our website, we put it front and center. It's on the bottle. Yeah, and just trying to, you know, it's you know, kind of like I said, how the USDA organic, you know, was 20 years ago, and continues to be something that's valuable. My hope is that the 1% for the planet can become something right along there, because that's, you know, that's one of the paths to reversing all the damage.
Yeah, and I mean, even like the USDA, it's you know, organic organization that is still, you know, a profitable organization in itself. It costs a lot of money to do that. 1% doesn't cost you money. It's an organization that's there to support you, to help you use all of your dollars towards, you know, these organizations. In regards to your question, supply chain, yes, so important to audit your supply chain. Not like when fashion, people are like, oh, well, I audit my factories. Like, great. You know, like, what about all that other stuff that's back there? You know, like, if, you know, companies are like, I want this shirt for 30 cents less. You're like, well, for you, 30 cents is nothing. You're like, oh, that's like nothing. But for factories, that's their margin. And you have these big companies being like 30 cents less. Like, you know, like I can't just, you know, I'm not just going to make you this for free. You know, so they're going to go find something worse. They're going to find cotton from a farm that supports slave labor, child labor, abuse of water usages and pesticides. And then, you know, their customers are supporting slave labor, child labor, and you have no idea. You're walking around the streets. And that's where I talk about this transparency, is understanding that. It's not just going there. It's not just asking them, oh, are you using something that's organic? It's asking for the GOTS certified GOTS is the global organic textile standard. It's asking for the certification every time you purchase something. And the word sustainability doesn't mean, environmentally friendly. It actually just means efficiency. To be sustainable means you're producing an efficient, company, a product, manufacturing, whatever it might be. No waste, shorter supply chains. I mean, like ordering organic locally is important, because why are you going to order something halfway across the country, ship it all the way here, all the carbon emissions that's going into that, and then ship it somewhere else, and then here, it's like, that's ridiculous, and it's inefficient, which is unsustainable. So when it comes down to sustainability, you're making things more efficient, you're actually gaining profit, because you're not being wasteful. And waste is loss of money. And product, if you're going to have access come out of your manufacturing, you want to make sure you use that for something. Earlier, the gentleman that was talking about beer and the waste of the products that he was using to make food. That's perfect. It's connecting the dots. That's not only connecting the dots, it's connecting an industry that's extremely wasteful when it comes to food, that also creates a lot of methane gas in the decomposition of the foods. So 1% is probably, you're saving way more than 1% when you're being more efficient. So to add that in there is not much more. And it's difficult to say that these sort of things have a direct ROI, because, it's like, no different than Yvonne last night talking about, we got boycotted. Boycott's supposed to make you less money, and it made them 600% more money. It's just, these are the things that if you have an idea, an ideology of supporting something, your customers see that, which is important why you want to be forward-facing about it, it's impactful. And it does make people want to support you and purchase your products. People need to buy things. It's the way the economy works. It's just whether or not they're going to buy something that does good in the world, or something that's not doing good in the world.
So it's social norming, or as you would put it, it's cool to care. Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you guys so much.